Good afternoon and welcome to today's video series. Today we're going to be focusing on creating a demand for your DJ services, and I am joined today by Dr. Drax. Thanks for joining me today, Drax.
Awesome. It's so good to be here. Can't wait to dive into this stuff to help people build a real business.
Now, this is video one in a 10-part series, and if you happen to be watching this one, this is part of a playlist. And down in the description below is the link to the playlist. You can click on that, and you'll be able to go right down that playlist and see all the different topics we're going to be discussing in our series on creating a demand for your DJ services. Drax, in the first one, I want to talk a little bit about, before we get too much into the demand part of it, we have to really understand ourselves. And how important is that to understand who we are before we start going beyond that point and creating that entity?
It's absolutely important. If you don't know who you are, how can you be anything? That becomes the universal shticky DJ that tries to be everything to all people. One of the things I developed for my own business was I honed down to the type of event I wanted to do, the client that I wanted to do it for, and what that would look like, because that developed the basis of I only did things I was able to define to a client. I'm a subject matter expert.
Mm-hmm.
An example, how many times do we see on the book, hey, I just booked my first mitzvah. How do you do one of these? Or I just booked my first quinceanera. How do you do one of these? You know, hey, a client just hired me for an Indian wedding. How do you do one of these? I want to go, boom.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, here's the short story. You've got no business booking an event that you don't already know how to do, period. End of story. Because if you don't know how to do it, you're going to suck at it, period. Because for most of those kind of cultural events, there's much more than playing music and making some introductions.
I mean, a prime example of that is a language barrier.
Exactly.
If I'm a concierge, I don't speak Spanish. There's going to be a language barrier there. So I could book one, but I'm certainly not going to dazzle in any way, shape, or form because it's just not what I do.
That's an exact thing. When I moved to Phoenix, I thought, excuse me, Phoenix has a pretty good Hispanic community.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh, I'll get into doing quinceaneras. Well, I learned quite quickly that you really need to be able to communicate in Spanish or have somebody that can be your interpreter.
Right.
And there's a whole series of things. So I thought, yeah, quinceanera, how hard can it be? I play some bachata, I play some reggaeton, it's all good, right? Well, the reality is there's so much more to it. And I learned from our ADJA chapter meeting the 10 most important things I could do, which is not to do them. To instead stick to what I do well and pass it on to someone in my chapter that does them well. Now, what that means is if you want to do them, awesome. Find someone that does them well, that has a position as a market expert. Ask them if you can work with them for free to learn how to do them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe this will require you finding someone that's 100 miles away or something, possibly, and you'll drive and you'll schlep their stuff and you'll be the talent assistant to watch what they do and learn what they do. That's the key element. You know, don't sell yourself as a club DJ if you don't have club skills. If you can't mix it off on the ones and twos, you've got really no business doing that. None at all.
Yeah, and pretty much in all these examples we're using is that if you're going to be taking these types of shows, you're going to be pedestrian at best, most likely suck, and that never, I don't know of anyone who goes and buys because it sucks.
Exactly. Nobody buys because it sucks. They buy because you're excellent. And that's the whole key to creating a business is you must have something you're uniquely better at than anybody else.
Buy because you're excellent. I like that. And we'll wrap this segment up on that. So in the first segment, we're talking about our the abilities and such and how to increase those. In our second one, which you'll start if you're watching the playlist, it should just start in a few seconds. We're going to be kind of digging into what Drax mentioned earlier about that preferred client and identifying, knowing a little bit more about those. If you haven't gotten to the playlist, in the description below is the link for that. You can jump on that. But otherwise, if you're watching the playlist, it'll be starting in just one moment.